Hello, everyone, and welcome to another technical live stream, Building Things with Wized. Today is the third and last of the live streams where we talk about Firebase integration in Wized, or how we called the project that we're going to see later, Wized Loves Firebase. So if you're coming new on this live stream, you haven't seen the previous ones, don't worry. Today we're going to be covering a few topics of Firebase that are just additional to the other ones. And if you like what you're going to see today, then just go back because there are two more live streams where we talked about things that you can do in Wized with Firebase. Okay, so today's live stream, it's about interacting with the Firebase storage. So we're going to see on how we can upload files from the browser using Wized to the Firebase storage, how we can then pull those files again from the storage to display them on the website. Let's imagine, for example, a picture or some file that the user may want to download. Okay, that's one of the things. Another thing, we're going to talk about how to run Firebase Cloud Functions from the browser using Wized as well. Okay, so we're not going to cover how to build those cloud functions. Don't worry, I'll give you more context later. But we're going to see how we can use those cloud functions to enhance our implementation of Firebase on the front end, because we can then run logic on the server. And then lastly, we're going to interact with the Wized JavaScript API, the one that allows us to hook with custom code and expand the capabilities of Wized. And we're going to see how to use that JavaScript API to get the Firebase client and to write any custom code with Firebase, as you would be doing if you were building everything from scratch using the Firebase SDK. Okay, so these three things is what's happening today. Before doing that, let me say hi to the people here in the chat. We don't have many folks yet. I see you, Pavel. Thank you for coming. Hope that you're having an awesome week, and you probably are interested in Firebase, so this is exciting. So before we start deep diving into this three concepts that I talked about, let's do a quick recap of the things that we talked in the previous live streams. So anybody who's joining and wants to see the full know the full thing of the three live streams that we will have done, let's do this. So let's share the screen super quick. On the first live stream, we talked about how to retrieve items from Firebase, and I think that, yeah, this is based on the params. I'll show you. You can see it in the first live stream, why it's not loading, because it depends on params, nothing special. We saw how to get items lists, and hold on, because there's something here. Why is it not running? Right, because I'm not logged in. Yeah, because there's an additional thing, but we saw how to get items lists. We saw how to create items, how to update items, how to delete items. This was the first live stream. On the second live stream, we talked about everything related to authentication. So as you can see here, I can have sign in with Google. We also had sign in with email and password. We saw how to sign up. We saw how to reset the email or the password. We saw how to get the user info. And then we also saw how to protect the data that the users can load from the browser, obviously, depending on their authentication status. So right now I'm not able to load anything because we implemented some rules in the last live stream that prevent me from doing it unless I am a specific user, which is not the case right now. But we saw all of that, everything related to database methods, everything related to authentication methods. Today, it's about what I mentioned before, which is storage, cloud functions, and the custom API. So I think that we're ready to jump into this. I don't think this is going to be a 1 hour long live stream. This might be shorter this time, because once I'm done with this, it's all about you guys going ahead and building things yourself. But if you have any questions, we can always extend the live stream, try to solve those questions. So guys, you've got here comments, go ahead and drop them. But in the meantime, let's just start building things. If we go to the application, we already have Firebase set up. If we go to requests, we already have a bunch of requests set up. Let's start with the storage requests. So same as we did before, let's create a new request. Let's select the Firebase app. And then in the method, you're going to see that there are two different methods for storage. We've got upload file and we've got get file URL. Okay. There is no direct method for downloading a file. There's a method for getting a file URL, and then it's up to the developer to do whatever with that file. You can download the file, you can display it, you can do whatever you want with the URL. Okay. So let's do these two first. But before implementing this, let's select upload file. Let's see what we need for that. We need to define a path and we need to define the file that we're going to be uploading. So when defining the path, the file storage in Firebase works very similar to how the document collections work, how the Firestore database works, which is that we've got routes, we've got paths. So if we go now to Firebase, let's remember how the database worked just for a second. And we saw that, we've got let me zoom in one more. We've got a /, then we define the collection, then a /, then we define the document ID. And all of these makes the path kind of like a website URL. You've got your domain, /, some folder, /, some page, like exactly like a URL works, right? So with storage, it's exactly the same. All we have to do is we're no longer using the database. We're now going to be using storage. So you can go in build and you can look for this storage option. Okay. The first time that you see the storage, you might not see this specific message of getting started. You might be prompted to actually add billing, okay? Because this is one of the restrictions from Firebase. You are still gonna be able to use it for free because it has a generous free tier, but it requires you to add some billing credentials just in case that you go above the free tier. So you might see a message here, hey, you need to switch to a billing plan, okay? I already did that. So in my case, I get this. Store and retrieve user-generated files like images, audio, and video without server-side code. Get started. So let's do that. Now, first of all, I've got to decide the bucket options, which means that I need to decide where I want to store the files. There are different servers around the world. In my case, I would decide, okay, actually, I only can decide from the US. So central, east, and west. I don't know. I don't care. Let's do central. No cost location. Actually, okay. Actually, you can choose from different locations, but probably what it means is that it's going to be a bit more expensive depending on how you're accessing this. So maybe if you care about GDPR and stuff like that, and you want to keep it on the European Union, maybe you want to do that. I don't care for this demo. Let's pick the cheapest one, like that. Start in production mode. Let's start with it in test mode. Okay. So the storage has exactly a rules like in the database. If you saw the previous live stream, you saw that the way that we protect things when getting items, depending on the authentication or depending on if the user has a paid subscription or whatever, this depends on Firebase rules. We saw that in the previous live stream. So with the storage, with the files, we also want to protect those files. Maybe the user is uploading some private documents for whatever your application is doing. You want to make sure that only your user can load those files and nobody else. So in that case, again, we are going to be defining Firebase rules. In this case, because I don't care much about the rules, let's start in test mode. But if you want to go in production, please ask ChatGPT, ask us to make a video, whatever. But make sure that you go over the rules and you don't let this be open for everyone, because then everyone can get the files. Be aware of that. Okay, great. Due to recent security improvements to cloud storage to Firebase, you must update your project settings. Let's fix this. To allow cloud storage for Firebase to function properly, a service account on this project needs to be granted an additional IAM role. Okay. That was solved. Okay, cool. Great. So now we've got the file system in here. Okay, and remember that it works exactly as it works in the database. So we're gonna have paths, we can have folders, and we can put files in the folders. Now let me upload something very quick. But not first I need to get something. So maybe you can get some cat picture, whatever. Let's do a cat like this one. Okay, cute cat. Let me download this. Download. I don't want to call this download. I want to call this cute cat. Like that. Okay, cool. So I can, for now, let's just try it in here. Can I drag and drop it? Doesn't look like it. So let's upload the file. And let's do here cute cat. Cool. Okay, that's it. So now we know that the directory, the route to this file, it's simply cute cat. That's it. Doesn't have any secret. If I created a folder and it said cats like that, and I moved this into, can I move it? Can I drag and drop it? Maybe I can't. File location. Create new access token. Oh, really? I can't. Okay. Let's delete it. Let's go in the cat folders. Let's upload cute cat. Good. Okay. And now if I wanted to access this, look at this. We've got /cats and then / the directory, the file location like that. Okay. So check it out. /cats / cutecat.jpg like that. But first of all, what we want to do is actually upload files ourselves. So let's do it. How can we do it? We know that the path can be /cats like that, right? So if I upload a file, it's going to go under the /cats folder. If I wanted to put it in the root, I would simply do /. That's it. Okay. So let's do, yeah, let's upload later another cat picture. Why not? And then we need to set up a form with a file input. So then we can attach that file input to the file in here. So then when we submit that form, we're going to fire this request, and this request will get the file from the file input. But I need to go to Webflow first. So let's do it. We go to Webflow. Let's duplicate this section, and let's call this file upload, for example. Let's get rid of this. And in here, let me open this super quick. Let me see section header. Okay, so first of all, we need to have a form for this, like that. And this form, I wanted to have a file input. So let's call this, give me a cute cat, please. Like that. Okay. So in here, we want a file input. Now, if you're not paying for Webflow Business, you probably will see that the element that it's for file upload, look at that, it is restricted, and Webflow, it's telling me to pay. I don't want to do that now because we're not going to be uploading files to Webflow. We're going to be uploading files to Firebase. I don't want to pay for any file uploading to Webflow. So instead of using the native file upload that Webflow provides, we're just going to use a custom element. Okay. So in this custom element, this is not going to be a div. We're going to make this an input. And this input will be of type file, like that. Okay. This is not Wized. This is browser thing. This is HTML. So let's call this type. And this is going to be a type of file like this. And you can see now that the moment that I change this, now I get a file picker. Again, this is standard HTML, right? As well, we need to pass it a name to it. So Wized, when reading the form, knows, okay, there's a file input that has a name of whatever. So let's call this name, and this name is going to be cat file input, whatever, like that. Okay. The reason why I'm using a name and not using the Wized attribute in here, it's because when we are submitting forms in Wized only needs to know about the form. So we're going to identify the form, and then any input that goes in the form, Wized detects it based on the native HTML name. Usually when you're doing things in Webflow, you would do it here in the text field settings, for example. You can see how there's a name property. In that case, if you're not doing, things in the Webflow UI and you're doing things with just HTML, that field is the same as having a name attribute. Okay. So name attribute, input type file, all good. All it's left is identify the form for Wist. So in that case, let's give it a name of Wist. Let's call this cat's form. Let's call this something better. Let's call this upload file form, something like that. Okay. You could potentially change the name of the form. Doesn't have any impact on Wist, but just for organization, I'm going to do it. So let's call this, I don't know, like the same thing, upload file form. But doesn't have any impact at all on Wist. Doesn't affect. What affects on forms for Wist? It's having the attribute of Wist. Okay. Great. Let's publish this. Hey Simon, thank you for coming. Hope that you're having a nice week. And let's go to Wist. Let's refresh this super quick and we should see the form at the bottom, file upload. We've got an upload file form. Great. And if I check my data store in here, if we go to forms, we're going to see how this is already detecting that we've got a form that's called upload file form that has a field in the form that's called cat file input. That's what we want to use for the uploading of files. Okay, so now let's go back to our request, which right now it's called draft request. So let's re-upload the change this to upload file, for example. And in the case we're putting this in the path /cats, this could be dynamic. If you had a user, remember that we are doing a get user request, right? So I already have a get user request in here with some data. So potentially I could put this dynamically. So instead of doing this, I could say, hey, /users, / and then we can concatenate with the r dot user get user dot data dot uid, for example. And that's essentially going to send the file to a folder called users and to a nested folder that is the user ID. Let's do it. Why not? Okay. And then in the file, we want to use the f dot upload file form dot cat file input like this. Okay. We're pretty much it. All we have to do now is create a submit event in here. So when we submit this form, we perform the request. So let's go in here, select the form, add event, and this event is going to be a submit event. Let's prevent default. Let's reset the form as well. Yes. And then in here, in the action, let's perform the request, and the request is going to be upload file. Done. Cool. Okay, let's try it. So we've got here my upload file status. Let's try it out. So let's select here. Let's select the cute cat. I've got my cute cat selected. Let's try to submit this and let's see what happens. Boom. Okay, cool. So this seems to be a success. We've got a 200. Okay. We've got the total bytes in here, 6895. Nice. And if we go to our storage in here and refresh this, I should see how the file was uploaded. Hey, this is Alex from the future. We are doing this new section because in the previous live stream, we had a small issue related to uploading files. So we fixed that issue. I'm going to explain it in a second. And I want to show you how to do it properly. Now, there was a problem in the last live stream related to Firebase having made an update where it changed the default bucket URL in from the Firebase storage. So if we check the Firebase documentation, you will see how previously the default bucket was projectid.appspot.com, but that was before October 30. After October 30, there's been some changes in Firebase, and now the default bucket URL is projectid.firebasestorage.app, which means that we cannot assume in Wist which URL you will have because maybe your project dates from before October 30. So that's why inside Wist now there's a new field when you're setting up a Firebase app. So if we go to our applications, we open our Firebase application, you'll see how you've got this new field called storage bucket. You want to fill that to make sure that Firebase in Wized, it's pointing to the right bucket URL. In the previous live stream, it was not pointing to the right bucket URL, so we were having these issues. That's why we're re-recording this. So to find the storage bucket value, you can check here in the info, can be found in the config object of your Firebase project. So let's go to the Firebase project in here, and I'm going to go to the project settings, and I'm going to scroll down until I find this line that's called storage bucket. I want to grab this URL and put it in Wized, so then Wized will always know the right URL where we are sending the files or downloading the files from. So let's grab this. Let's go back to Wized like that, and let's put it here in storage bucket. And now Wized will know exactly when we upload the file, where to send that file. There's an additional thing that I wanted to correct from the previous live stream, and it's that when we created the upload file endpoint, we defined that we wanted to put the file under the cat folder. So if you go back to the storage in our Firebase project, we had created this cats folder, but there was one missing thing, and it's that not only I need to define where I want to put the file, I also need to tell Firebase the file name, because maybe I want to upload that as cutecats.jpg, but maybe I want to upload that as, I don't know, alexiscool.jpg, whatever. I can rename the name, I can change the name, so we need to pass that into Firebase. So in here, what I've done is I've done /cats / and then from the form f.uploadFileForm.calFetInput, which is this input in here. This gives me what's called a file list. That's why I'm accessing it using an array, because potentially you could be uploading multiple files to a file input if it accepts multiple files. So I'm grabbing the first file and I'm getting the name of it. So any file that I upload in here, it's going to grab the original file name and send it to Firebase as well. But imagine that you wanted to just hardcode this and instead just call these whatever .jpg like that. That would work, and the file would be uploaded as /cats / whatever .jpg. Okay, that's not the case for us at this moment. So let's revert. Let's go back a bit more like that. Okay, so /cats / the name of the file that we are uploading. So let's try it out. We've got the storage bucket set. We've got the request set properly. Have I cleaned up the file? Yes, there are no files here. So let's try it out. Let's reload the page. And file upload. Let's choose a cute cat. Let's submit it. And now if we inspect the data store, you're going to see how we've got a bunch of things going on. It has said, it has requested, true, And also here, the data, it's being updated while the file is uploaded. At this moment, the upload has finished. So I see the state it's success. I can see the total bytes. I can see the bytes transferred as well. And I can see the URL of the file that was uploaded, right? Like that. So in case that I wanted to download the file now, I could do it through this URL. Also, there's some metadata that Firebase injects for me. This is the metadata from the image, like the type of file, the full path. There's a bunch of things that you probably don't want to deal with, but anyways, it's there. If I re-upload this, just so you see it, you will see how the state of Wized dynamically is updated based on the status progress, which means that you could potentially build a status bar that shows you the percentage that has been uploaded. Let's try it out. Let me submit and pay attention to the data state in here. Let's submit. And it was pretty fast, obviously, but you probably saw how it was from running to the total amount structure. That's because the file is very small. But if it was a big file, I would see how Wized is dynamically updating the state to say, hey, this amount of bytes was updated, this amount of bytes was updated, plus, until we reach the state of success. So if you want to implement a loading bar for the upload, you can do it using this, where total bytes would be the 100%, and the bytes transferred is the progress. So if we had transferred instead of these, we had transferred like 1,000. That means that it's about a 15% of the total. So you could potentially animate that. Up to you. Okay. But if we go now in here, let's refresh the storage bucket and we will see how we've got the cute cat like that. Yay. That's it. See you again from the current present and not from the future. Thank you. Let's move on into the cloud functions. Okay. Let's erase the last 20 minutes and let's go into cloud functions. So Firebase, and now what I want to show you is how to invoke cloud function. Okay. So let's call this invoke cloud function. And in here, you're going to see that this is asking me for a function name. Okay. The reason why it asks me for a function name is because if we go back to our Firebase data dashboard, if you go to the build dropdown, you're going to see that there's a section called functions. And these functions are essentially server-side functions. So it's backend code that it's going to run on a server, and you can call it from the front end. Now, creating functions requires a whole different live stream. And the reason for that is because we cannot create functions directly from the Firebase dashboard. We need to set up the CLI. We need to open up a code editor like VS Code. We need to build a function in there. And then we need to push the code into Google using the CLI. It's a bit verbose. It's a bit cumbersome to do right now. So instead of showing you that, because I would spend like an hour doing it, I have a different project where I already have some functions. Now, if you want to see me building a Firebase function, let me know. We can do a different live stream. But I recommend that you simply go and click on how do I get started? Because in here, you're going to see a guide from Google that shows you everything. It shows you how to set up the cloud functions, CLI, how to write the function, how to test the function locally, and how to deploy and monitor this. Okay, it's going to show you everything. But still, if you're confused and you want to see me do it, just drop us a comment and we're going to do it. So instead of using this Wiz demo project, I'm going to use a different project that it's called Wized CI testing. And it's the testing project that we use for all the CI functions. So here, I already have some functions set up. You can see how I've got a function that's called get request. I've got a function called get greeting and a function called post body, like that. Okay. So let's just use this. Okay. So obviously, because I switched project, what I have to do first is go to my apps and I need to create a different app integration. And that's going to be Firebase, other Firebase. Let's call it like this. And there's going to be a Firebase, and I need to pass again the project ID, app ID, and API key. So let's do it super quick. So in here, let's go to project settings, and I can come down here. And this is going to be the API key, the project ID, and the app ID. Okay, so project ID, super quick. Project ID. Then let's get the app ID like that. It was kind of cool having music in the background, wasn't it? I enjoyed it. Okay, we've got this set up. Okay, and then here, when we do the invoke cloud function, we're not going to do it with the Firebase initial app that we created. We're going to do it with the other Firebase, okay? The one that has these functions defined. And in here, we're going to do something like get greeting, which is, sorry, let's go back to the functions. Get greeting is this function that we created, and essentially all it's going to say is hello to me, like that. It's a very simple function. So if we come here and we play this, I don't know if we need to pass somebody. We might have to pass somebody, but I think that no. So let's try it. If we play this, we're going to see a Firebase error. That probably means that we need as well to pass something to it. So hold on, stay with me for a second. Because I got here the definition of the function. Get greeting, the method, it's get greeting, like that. Actually, it doesn't need anything else. Doesn't need anything else, so I should be able to try it out. Get greeting. Is it called get greeting? It is called get greeting. Yes. Actually, we just invoked it right now. Let me refresh super quick. Okay, nice. Okay, I needed to refresh. Okay. But if we check this, what happens is that we're sending a request to this server function. The server function is running some logic. It could be a lot of things. It could be doing sending data to Stripe. It could be preparing something to send an email to the user. It could be an LLM chatbot response. Like you can do anything because it's a server. Okay, you can do it in the function. In this case, it's a very simple function that all it's doing is just return a response that says "Hello world" like that. There's another request that we've got here also as well. It's just for testing, super simple. That it's called post body, and this post body request, let's write it in here. This post body request, all it's gonna do is if I send somebody to it, it's gonna respond to me with the same body. So post body like that. And let's do here some foo, and let's return some bar as well. So we're sending this key value pair of the body. And let me just refresh just in case, because I don't know why, but I was getting an error. But if we play this like this, now you can see how this was a success, and we've got some data, and the data contains essentially this body in here, and the body has foo and bar, like that. Very simple. Okay. So that's pretty much it for Cloud Functions. Very simple, I know, but yet powerful because you can do a lot of things with this. You can run any kind of logic that you wouldn't do on the browser because of security. You just process it on the server and you get a response back from Cloud Functions. Okay, nice. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, this is looking good. The last thing that we want to talk about is how to interact with the JavaScript API. Okay, so remember that right now, everything that we're doing in Firebase with Wized, it's based on the methods that Wized offers to you. So these are the methods that we've built into Wized, and then we have a UI for that. But Firebase, it's more extensive. There's a lot of things in Firebase that you can do, including that if you want to run some custom code and then interact with the SDK for very complex logic, you need to do this. You need to get the SDK client so you can interact directly with it. So the way that you can do it is, let's go to our documentation. So I'm going to close a bunch of things here. Yes. Let's go to our documentation, docs.wiz.com. Okay. And I want to go to this section that is called JavaScript API. And in this section, you can scroll down until you see these wist.requests.getClient. This method, what allows me to do is say, okay, for these kind of requests, I'm using Firebase, and Firebase has an SDK client. I want to get the SDK client for myself so I can use it with custom code. Okay, so that's what I want to do. The function expects an identifier that can be either a request ID, a request name, an app ID, or an app name. And in here returns the client used to execute the request. This is useful when you need to interact with the SDK client directly with custom code. Currently, only Supabase and Firebase clients are supported, so not only Firebase, but you can also use Supabase. And the returned object will be one of the following. If you're requesting some Supabase, you would get this. If you're requesting some Firebase client, you get this in here. So essentially, you get type Firebase, so you know that you're getting a Firebase client. You're getting a version as well of the SDK because the Firebase SDK has versions. And in Wist, we use a specific version. That version might change in the future. So that's why we provide you with that version name. So in case that you want to log your custom code to a specific version, you can check it with this. It's important that you check for the version. I would do it honestly. Then you get the app instance, you get the auth instance, you get the Firestore instance, and you get the storage instance. You get all these different client APIs. And in here, you can do it like this. So essentially, you await Wized request.getClient. you pass whatever app name is, and then in here you can check for things. Okay, so let's do it super quick. In here, let's create an event. You could potentially do with custom code like outside of Wized, but because in Wized we can also run functions, we can also run custom code, we can do it directly in Wized. So how about we do an event, and that event, it's going to be I don't know, page finishes loading. Why not? And let's do interact with Firebase SDK, whatever. Okay. And when the page finishes loading, we want to run a function. Okay. So in this custom function where I am writing my custom code, I want to interact with the Firebase SDK. So if we remember, we're going to do const result for now. And let's do await west dot requests dot get client. And I want to get the client for one of these two. Because remember that right now I have two different Firebase instances. One is for the project that I was initially working with. The other one is for a different project, the one that had the functions. Let's imagine that I want to interact with the original one, the Firebase project, okay? Which would be, if I go back here, it would not be this Wized CI testing, it's the Wized demo project. And in here, not Webflow, sorry, in here, inside the event, I want to pass the get client of this application. So I would pass the application name of it, like that. For now, let's just console log the result, like this. Okay, oops, like that. So if we open this here, let's refresh the page, and look at this. Right now, we already can see the result, and the result is telling me, okay, you've got an app instance, you've got an auth instance, you've got a Firestore instance, you've got a storage instance, and you've got the type Firebase, and you've got the version, and this is the version of the SDK that right now Wized is using for Firebase, which is version 10.14.1. Okay. One of the recommendations that I give, honestly, is because Wized might be upgrading the SDK in the future if Firebase also upgrades the SDK. And when there are big changes, there might be breaking changes, and maybe there are things that work differently with the SDK. So you probably want to always check for the major version of the SDK. Right now, the major version is 10. The moment that they switch to the version 11, maybe that means that something broke, or like not broke, but changed and could be potentially breaking. So I would always do if result version, it doesn't start with 10. In that case, I would say console log Firebase as the key version changed. And I would simply return from here. Okay, so we are not running any logic because we are not prepared for that. Keep that in mind. But now, if we've done this, now we know for sure that we're working with the Firebase SDK version 10, and we can write some custom code. So how about with the Firestore? So let's do result. Actually, we could destructure this. So in here, we could do the version like that. And we could also do Firestore like this, okay? Don't worry about the type, right? You also want to take check for the type. So let me do this. Now this is advanced TypeScript things, but don't worry, because right now the result, as you can see, it can be either Superbase or it can be Firebase, because and here the code doesn't know exactly what we're dealing with. So in this case, we need to check if it's Firebase. So let's do if the result dot type is not equals to Firebase, we want to see, well, simply return. Well, I know that it's Firebase, but I don't know. Like maybe I could be missing something here, making a typo. Could be that it's not the right result. Hello again. This is Alex from the future for the second time. Since we did this live stream, there's been a bunch of things that changed in the Wized JavaScript API, and now it's easier to do what was I was about to do. So I'm re-recording this to show you the better and easier version to interact with the Firebase SDK using custom code. Okay. So far, what we've done, it's absolutely perfect. So let's share the screen for a second, which is that we got the client result. We checked that it was Firebase client. We also checked that the version was the one that we expect to use. But now it's the time to interact with Firebase, right? Usually, when you are writing custom code with Firebase, you would use the Firebase npm SDK JavaScript, whatever. You would use the Firebase npm package. And this Firebase npm package provides a bunch of things. So it has different namespaces. It has a namespace for the app. It has a namespace for the Firestore, has a namespace for storage, another namespace for whatever. So essentially every single feature of Firebase, it's inside it's inside a namespace. So functions as well, analytics, blah, 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 everything, right? And the way that you would do it is by importing the methods directly from the npm package. So if we were doing something like get a document to read a document just programmatically using custom code, you'd here do something like Firebase get doc web SDK. Let me see, get data with Cloud Firestore. Get doc. Let's see if I can find it. Well, here's updating. So, well, yeah, get document here. Good. So usually you would do it like this. You can see import doc and get doc, two methods from Firebase Firestore. And then in here, you would interact with this. You would get a reference using the doc method, and then you would get a snapshot using the get doc method. And then you can do something about it with this, right? So if I wanted to exactly use this custom code here, let's go back to Wized. If I wanted to do this, right, you can see how doc and get doc don't exist right now in here. And the reason is because we need a way to access these methods from the SDK. Okay. Now, because we've done this update and I'm re-recording this, now it's easier to do this. And I want to show to you going to our documentation, going to the JavaScript API, and going down to the get client documentation. And you will see how now Firebase has a new section, has a new value in the return that's called modules. Okay. These modules are used for blah, 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 blah. These modules are used to interact with the client dynamically imported from the Firebase npm package. So if you need to access anything from the app namespace or from the auth namespace or from the Firestore namespace or from the storage namespace, these are the four main spaces that right now we offer in Wized, then you can do it like that. So you can use this method to interact with the client like this, yes, and then in the Firebase client, you can access the modules as I mentioned. So you could do, for example, this. Await modules Firestore. You can get the methods that the Firestore module implements. These Firebase Firestore. Okay, so everything like dog, get dog, collection, set dog, all the different methods that you would get from Firestore, you can access them. And same applies for auth, app, and storage. So let's go back to Wized. In here, we need a way then to get this. If we go to the documentation, all we need to do is retrieve the Firestore module like that. Let's just copy it first. Let's paste it in here. In the example, it was destructuring modules, but in our case, we got results. So we want to do result.modules.firestore. And this gives me anything that I need, right? In this case, I'm going to use this example. I'm going to use dog and get dog like that. Then the dog method, and this is not Wized, this is Firebase, the doc method expects the first property to be the Firestore instance, which in our case can be accessed by result.firestore, like that. That's the Firestore instance. But if you wanted to follow exactly the same docs from Firebase, which usually they use the word db. In the case, you could just simply say, hey, like const db equals to result dot firestore. Okay, would be the same thing as doing this, or simply passing result of firestore directly to the doc callback. So in this case, I don't have a cities collection. Let's adapt this to our example. So in our example, we've got tasks. And remember that these tasks are protected based on the user. And I've been already checking that. And I know that this specific task is assigned to the user that it's currently logged in the current state. So I'm going to use this. Okay, I'm going to use /tasks/this document. Let's try to get this document. So this would be the tasks collection, and the document ID, it's this one. Here we're creating the reference to the document, and then we're getting a snapshot with the getDoc method. And then here a bunch of methods, like we can see if the document exists, and otherwise we console log the document data, and if it does not exist, then it's just going to say there's no such document. Okay, great. So actually, we can already check this. If I open my console, we should see it. Let's refresh this. Let's close it, and let's reload. And well, yes, because here we are not logged in right now. Actually, yes, we are, but I'm logged in with my personal email. So let's change that, because the task, this task, it's tied to my FinSuite email, not my personal email. So here I know that on the live side, I am logged in using my FinSuite email. Good. Which means that I can get the document data. Look at that. Look, user ID, and I can get the document data, which showcases that not only we have access to all the Firebase methods, also Wized, it's still handling the authentication internally for us. Well, actually, it's not Wized, it's just Firebase. So anytime that we try to do something like updating a document, deleting a document, reading a document, or getting a collection, whatever, the rules that are applied to that collection, which in this case, if you remember, there are some rules applied to the tasks that say, hey, allowed to read only if the unique user ID is equal to the user ID from the task. So in that case, if I try to read this task that it's tied to this user ID, let's go to authentication. This user ID, which is this one, I know it, then we can get it. But if not, then we're going to get an error. And that's exactly what we got in here. On the left side, I'm logged in as Alex Iglesias at finsuite.com, and the custom code worked. I can see my document in here. But inside Wized, I'm not logged as that user. I'm logged as my personal email. Please don't send me emails. And in here, Firebase is smart enough to tell me, hey, you cannot read this because this task does not belong to you. You don't have permissions to do that. Okay. And that all is happening through my custom code in here. Okay. So quick recap. When we try to access the SDK, we first want to run wiz.request.getClient and pass the app name to it. We're going to get a result. We want to make sure that the result exists, that it's Firebase, and that the version is the one that we are expecting it to be, because maybe in the future, Wiz will update this version. And then we can simply get access to any properties and methods that the modules export from result.modules.app, auth, storage, or firestore. And from here, we can simply use those methods as you would normally use if you were writing custom code using the npm package like that. Okay. And that's it. Yay, this is working. So that marks the end of today's live stream. I am finishing this live stream as the future Alex. But I know for sure that this is the end of the Firebase series. It's been 3 series. If you haven't watched the previous series, go ahead and do it. because we've got two more live streams talking about everything that you can do with Firebase. And if you want to keep learning about more things from Wist, next Friday, not from the future, but next Friday of you guys who are watching this, we talk about the JavaScript API for Wist, everything that you can do with it. So, see you around. Thank you for coming by. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye, all.